ugliness. When you deny the senses, the refinement of the senses becomes irrelevant and only coarseness and crudeness remains. Now I'm going to point this out to you, for those of you who have been in India. And I raise this often as a challenge to many of our religious heads in India. I ask them, what place in India do you consider your most sacred spaces? And of course they will say the temples. And then I ask, which do you find to be the dirtiest places?
Temples.
And the temples. Isn't that strange? Your most sacred space becomes the dirtiest. It is not so here. But it is so in India for a reason. Because of this ascetic turn, because of the denial and rejection of life. And it has gone so deep in some places that the common man is insensitive to the senses, insensitive to beauty, insensitive to refinement. And even he has been taught to celebrate weakness and poverty as a great thing. We saw this particularly exaggerated during the freedom struggle. And we have to recognize and we have to say it in so many words, these are distortions and falsehoods. And you find in the corrective movement, Aurobindo and the Mother have brought back spirituality turning to embrace life, life turning to embrace the spirit. We can raise this as a practical question. Can the two really meet? And if they do meet, will it not be a compromise? Because the two seem to be so extremely opposite. And in fact, Aurobindo observes, it is not a compromise. The true spirituality is that which is at the origin of all life. All life emerges out of an expression of the divine will to manifest. And therefore, when we recover that true spirituality, it is not contrary to life, it is rather the source of life. And life is its fulfillment, is its self-expression. On the other side, from the perspective of life, spirituality is that which being the origin of it all, is also that which fulfills in all it does. And the embracement of the two is not a compromise, it is in fact the fulfillment of the one thing which exists, divine life. We look at it in two different ways. Just to satisfy the mind, we can look at it in different ways. First, that where did life come from? It was nothing but the one divine will to manifest and become many and express itself as many. That's it. There is nothing other than the divine. So how can life ever be different? This is one way of looking at it. The other side is, look at the deepest impulses of life. What do we seek in life? Yes, we want to be happy, we want to be peaceful. We want to experience the conquest of difficulties, the exercise of power to overcome limitations. We want to experience the fullness and richness of life's expression. Barrenness is unsatisfying. And look at nature. Wherever do you find nature being barren truly? In fact, nature's flowers bursting out from the trees are this plenty to the point of being wasteful. And it bursts out, joyous outburst of millions of flowers, an excess of that plenty and joy, and then it allows it to lapse and again prepares for the next burst. All of life's deepest impulses seek to fulfill. And within us, from the moment we are born, you will find the child newborn is drawn spontaneously to all the experiences of the senses. But notice also, it is naturally attracted to the beautiful experience of sense, not the ugly, not the coarse. We might say beauty is only a convention that we are trained to recognize because of our upbringing. But if you observe a newborn child, place before him a beautiful object and an ugly object, he will turn to the beautiful. You place an ugly image, he will start crying. You make an ugly face, he will start crying. And he turns to beautiful things. Not only in beauty of form, but beauty of vibrational quality. Happy people, content people, he is drawn to them. Because that is our deepest impulse, to find those things, to express those things, to fulfill that in life. So when spirituality turns to life, embraces life and fulfills life, it takes on these different aspects in its expression. First, it fulfills all the sensory experiences by raising and refining them. The difference between a barbarian and a civilized person is only one of a refinement of consciousness, isn't it? The same impulses are raised and given a different meaning. Observe, if you've ever had a dog as a pet, if he's been hungry for a long time and you pour the food in his bowl, the dog rushes to his food, crunch, 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 finished, and is out. And what does the human being do? And consider not everything in the world is hungry. The nature of the physical world is hunger. The name given in Sanskrit in the yogic tradition to matter is annam, which is also food. Annamaya kosha, physical body, is also food body. The word is the same. Why? Because the nature of the physical world is everything eats everything else, while itself is being eaten by everything else. This is the character of the physical world. The hunger, which is omnipresent in matter. And even as the human being eats his food, it is being eaten by other things and so on. There's this whole cycle of life which we are familiar with. So what we do is, before eating, especially if we are sitting outside, we take a grain of rice and throw it out in 4 directions, 4 grains. Or sometimes just take out 1 grain and place it aside, with the idea that I share my food with all beings which are hungry. And just that idea raises the whole eating experience to a new level, isn't it? And then we invoke, we offer a prayer, we offer the food to the divine. And after he has taken the food, he gives it back to us as prasad, sanctified, blessed food. And then what you eat is not just the substance of nutrition, but also the spiritual substance of spiritual nutrition that is now infused into the food. And when you eat with that, you can actually feel the difference that it does, that it makes, both in the experience of the hunger being quenched and in your body's consciousness. Everything shifts to a new level. One can take that to still higher levels in the experience of food. For example, when you eat, when you take something delicious in your mouth, the experience of enjoyment of something delicious, we can share that with the divine. Try this out when you go back today, when you have your dinner. When you eat something delicious and you enjoy it, thank the divine for this experience of enjoyment. And then share that enjoyment with the divine. Offer it to the divine. Here, I'm enjoying it so much. You share my enjoyment and you give it to him. It's a very deep symbol which exists in the Vedic tradition, that the Rishi extracts the sap from all the plants representing life, the sap being the deep essence of the experiences. He distills and purifies it, and then the purified essence he offers to the gods. And once they have tasted of it, then he drinks it. It's a very deep symbol which I'm putting it in a more practical form in the food eating experience. Try this out and you'll see what a difference it makes to the enjoyment itself. It raises it and makes it a part of the spiritual. And you can even take it a little further. as you share your enjoyment with the Lord, as the Lord enjoys with you, you lose yourself in His enjoyment. And then you experience only Him enjoying the food through you. And you're only the instrument through which He experiences His enjoyment. And you, as the instrument, share in His total enjoyment. It's an extraordinary experience that one can actually lose oneself in. It is so beautiful. And yes, these are accessible to us as we are. We don't need to be great yogis for this. All it takes is this little effort. And you can see how in this way, all sensory experience can be raised, sanctified and brought into the ambit of the spiritual experience of life. And made a means for the spiritual growth and the deepening of closeness to the Divine Presence within us, around us, in all things. And if the sensory experience can be so taken into the spiritual, it is the same with the aspects of money and power. In the Indian tradition, we worship wealth as the goddess Lakshmi. And yet, on the other hand, we criticize wealth as being not spiritual. Isn't that a contradiction? The correction, Aurobindo observes, is to recognize all wealth as belonging not to you but to the Divine. And the wealth placed in your hands is placed by Him for His work. And you are a trustee, not the owner, not the possessor. And as a trustee, you have to apply it correctly, which includes its proper application in your business. And what comes as the result of your efforts in the business is also given to you by Him for His benefit. And His benefit includes your fulfillment of personal growth as well as your family and your community and all others around. Maybe with different priorities at different times. That also is His work. To say that His work is only the other and not me and my family is contradictory, because all belongs to Him, isn't it? And you are placed in a particular location with a particular responsibility by Him. So your family is given to you as your responsibility to look after as His family. And if one brings in this shift of perspective, maybe one can't do it all the time in the middle of the work or the business, but at the start of the day, just look at the life ahead, the work ahead, what needs to be done today, and know that it belongs not to you but to the Lord. And it's given to you so that you use it the right way for Him as His trustee. And then you enter your work as usual. You may forget all these things while you're in the work. At the end of the day, once again stand back from all that has been done, offer it all to Him and say, here, this is what I have done. If you like, you can even give Him your report as you report to your boss. You gave me this work, this is what I have done today, these are the difficulties I face. In the Sri Aurobindo ashram, all activities of life were represented in a small way. Today, what is a community of 1,500 people, you will find are doing all kinds of things. And literally every activity has been represented, even businesses. And the first business that Mother initiated, she named it Honesty. Because that was the first big challenge, the first big correction required in the business domain itself. This I give as an example, but the fulfillment of the spirituality in life, Mother observed, takes on 4 dimensions. In the physical life, in the physical consciousness, in the body itself, the Divine manifests most completely as beauty. In the life energies, prana, vitality, the Divine manifests most naturally as power. In the mind, in the mental consciousness, the Divine manifests most completely as knowledge, complete, all-encompassing, undivided, unfragmented knowledge. And deep within us, in our soul, in the psychic being, the Divine manifests as pure love. And the fulfillment of the divine life is in all these four facets being completely expressed in the totality of our being. Beauty, power, knowledge, love. But of course, the divine knowledge, divine power, divine beauty and divine love. When we use the word divine, we tend to associate it with something beyond our reach. But in the examples I have given earlier, you notice it is not beyond our reach. When we make the first step, the divine fills our step with His presence and divinizes our steps as we proceed. So the journey itself is not difficult. At best one might say, it takes time. How much time? Depends. Depends on so many things. Most of all, it depends on the nature of our effort. How important is it to you? What are you willing to give in that effort? Well, I can say, I am willing to give my 5 minutes every day. That's a good start. But there are those of us who might say, I'm going to try to give all of it. It's not easy, but I'm going to try. And that's an even better step forward. And then we might even say, I'm willing to give all of myself. And that might make it even more interesting and perhaps easier. Because the biggest barrier we have really in the awakening of the consciousness or our awakening to the divine presence is our old habits. By habit we are rooted in a certain way of behavior, action, reaction, a way of thinking, feeling, reacting. It's habit. And a habit which is not just the habit formed in this lifetime, it's the habit of the species. It's the habit of our animal origins. You observe what monkeys do, what lions do, what little insects do, and really we're not too different in our instinctive responses. We're just more sophisticated, but the instinctive patterns are similar. If you observe animal psychology, you can pretty much describe human psychology. So there's a problem of the habit that carries across a few million years. But if we open ourselves and say, well, here is a habit, and I choose not to be a victim of that instinctive impulse, I choose to act consciously. Already the habit begins to weaken. And then if in that conscious action, I make that additional connection of invocation, of remembrance, of connecting in some way, in thought, in feeling, to the divine presence, that informs the action and fills it with a different quality, a different perfume, a different light, and things change rapidly. So a lot depends on what kind of effort we make also, but we must make that effort. It is for this reason you will see, because now it is time for this correction, for the spiritual life to be manifested on earth, that all over the world you will find the ascetic tendency is weakening and even breaking down. Sometimes it is seen as an exaggerated correction, where the younger generations are drawn to materialistic tendencies, satisfaction of the senses and so on, and we wonder what will happen to the world. But if you look behind it to the deeper truth, you understand why. Because the denial of these things is a falsehood. The fulfillment of these things is not indulgence, but their transformation, their refinement, their purification, their divinization. And that's the part which we are stuck with, simply because, well, we are not conscious. And yet it's happening. It's happening in spite of us. In the masses it takes longer, in us, well, because we are conscious, it might happen sooner. So Mother used to say, the idea that there is a spiritual life versus a material life is a falsehood, and we must get rid of it. There is only one spirit, and there is only one life, which is the manifestation of the spirit. And we must remind ourselves of this every day. whatever you do, it's not what you do, it's how you do, why you do, the attitude, spirit, consciousness with which you do, that makes it spiritual. You're familiar with some of the interesting observations one makes. Even if you're